Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the James Skrmetta Show podcast, presented to you by, you know by now, Mac Anderson and Associates, PLLC, the premier law services and the greatest sponsor in podcast history. How are you doing? The second podcast of the week. You will probably hear this on Thursday, although we are recording on a Wednesday, but you could be early. In case you don't know, we do release these podcasts sneakily into the night, most Wednesday nights around 10 p.m., something like that, 11 some nights. So if you do want to hear it before Thursday morning, they are available to those who go and find. Seek wisdom and you will find it, or something like that. Today's show, a lot of stuff to talk about. Kamala Harris and Hilary Clinton's hot sauce fiasco. Cardi B somehow sneaks back into the podcast. I guess we're a Cardi B podcast now. I don't even know. And so we're going to talk to some Joe Biden as well. As we speak right now, the third night, I think, of the DNC is going on. I don't know. Everything's just so wild, man. Like it's honestly, everything's so crazy that it's hard to even kind of keep up. It's hard to even kind of keep up with what's real, what's not real. It's all just so crazy. And we're going to get into a lot of that on the show. But, yeah, so I have no idea what's happening at the DNC right now. I think last night Bill Clinton spoke, and who better to speak in 2020 than Slick Willie Bill Clinton? I mean, there's nothing crazy that could come out about him. You know, he's pretty squeaky clean. He definitely fits the 2020 situation. So great call for the DNC to roll Bill Clinton out there. Fantastic stuff. How's everyone's life going? How's y'all's weeks going? Last time we talked was Monday. Feels like forever, doesn't it? The days just kind of blend on by. I mean, it's only been 2 days, you know. Well, I guess 3 days since I recorded on Sunday. It's only been a couple days, but it seems like a lifetime. That's what's kind of crazy right now about this time is that, you know, time moves in a weird way here. It's so linear. It's so, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, "What day is it again?" In this kind of quarantined atmosphere. I'm actually stuck at the house. I've had to bring my car to a repair shop because of a little fender bender. I was swimming. I think I told this on the podcast. I was swimming. My car got hit when it was parked. I had to go, you know, I'd go and swim the lanes. And so I had to go get that fixed. So I've been out of car. So I've been just stuck at the house. Very cabin fever-esque life going on right here. I've been doing a lot of YouTube rabbit holes. One of my favorite hobbies, one of my favorite pastimes is the old YouTube rabbit hole. I've been going down one. Somehow it got me back to the Casey Anthony trial. And man, it's just hard to believe how insane all that was. I mean, it's hard to believe they did not get her. Isn't that wild? I was watching this YouTube channel. I think it's called like Jeff Can't Swim. And he goes through like all these criminal trials and he goes through the interrogations and all that stuff. And it's so fascinating. Like, to watch the interrogation and kind of watch it all and watch the confessions and all that and just the court theatrics and the Casey Anthony, man. I remember I was working at, I was valet. I was back when I was working valet every summer during college. And I would come home at, I worked at that point 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I would always flip on Nancy Grace or whatever. I kept up with the Casey Anthony case like better than almost anything. I was locked into that case. I still remember the day the verdict was read, and going back and watching these videos is just so wild to see that they didn't get her. I mean, I'll give you all a few tidbits, but she didn't call the police for 30 days when her kid was missing. Her kid was found, I think, less than a mile from her house. Her Google searches the day before the child went missing were for like suffocation. It was like how to definitely suffocate a child. I mean, it was basically like, how do I kill my daughter? Was her Google searches. And then one of the most damning things was when detectives finally got with her, she led the detectives, or she lied and said that she worked at Universal Studios. So the detectives were like, okay, well, let's go to your office. So she goes to Universal with these two detectives, and she's like parading them around Universal Studios, all through the back offices, all through all these places for like 30 minutes. And then she finally stops at a dead-end hallway, and she admits that she doesn't actually work at Universal. And that's when they arrest her and start the interrogations. And it's just crazy when you see all of that stuff mount up. and then remember that she somehow got off. But that was just a little rabbit hole I've been going down. Another thing I saw before we actually get into the topics, when I was bringing my car to the repair shop, they had this little, remember back probably 3 or 4 years ago, the big cool thing was like food trucks, and they used to set up like the food truck neighborhood kind of areas where just 4 or 5 food trucks would pull up, and they'd sit there for like a lunchtime period, and people could go get the snacks. Well, I was driving through to this repair shop, and there was like a food truck kind of area, and there was a food truck, and then there was something I've never seen before, but it really kind of caught my eye. It was a mobile axe throwing trailer. And we have an axe throwing place, I don't know what they're called, at in our city, the city where the podcast is home based. And it's like this big building where you go, there's a bar, and you can sling axes. And I mean, what a better way to spend a Thursday evening than knocking back a few brewskis and slinging an axe like a old school Viking. But this was a mobile axe throwing thing. And the whole thing was this big cage. It looked like, if you saw Jurassic World, it looked like what they had the Indoraptor in. It was like this long cage, it looked like a hallway with bars. And you get in there, and they lock you in there, I guess, and they give you some axes, and you can just huck these axes in the trailer at this like wooden disc. It looked like a target, like a dartboard target, but it was a giant wooden one. And there was people lined up. There were people in the cage just slinging these axes. And it was probably like noon, 1 p.m., something like that. And I just couldn't stop looking at it. I was just thinking, what a wild world that this is currently the entertainment. This is currently what we have going on here, is this mobile, like, when I was growing up, there was like ice cream trucks, an ice cream truck would stop by. You get a baseball glove with a gumball as the baseball. You get SpongeBob with a couple gumball eyeballs. And now, what pulls up to wherever you're hanging out? Just a mobile axe throwing machine, a mobile axe throwing vehicle. Times have changed, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's get to the actual topics here. I don't like to say we get everything right. I don't like to say, oh man, we're killing it. I don't like to say, oh man, we're lighting it up. We haven't missed in 2020. Literally everything that we've said has come true. I don't like to say those things. I don't like for people to, text me or tweet me or whatever and say, man, I listened to your podcast last week and every single thing you said actually happened this following week. But here we are. Last week on the podcast, and I know I said I would stop saying this, but this actually is directly related to the last podcast. We talked about Kamala Harris. And we talked about how we are getting the exact blueprint, the 101, the here you go, the racial thing, where they were saying she was Indian Jamaican, they were saying she's African American, they were saying she's South Asian. I'm not even sure if she's from this planet at this point. Their name is so many different places. But we already talked about that, and I told everyone, look, guys, do not fall for the tricks. Do not fall for the trickerations. I can already feel my blood pressure rising. I can already feel it. I knew this was going to happen, and it's only going to get higher. I just hope I don't stroke out in the middle of this podcast. If I don't release the podcast Thursday morning, or I guess I was going to say someone come find me, but how can y'all know if I can't release this? What a sad, sad twist of fate this is. But anyways, I told everyone, do not fall for this. Do not let them do this to you. Have some more self-pride. Have a little bit more self-pride than just to look at this and say, yep, there it is. The racial issue. She's South Asian, Indian, Jamaican. That's what I'm looking for. I've been dying for a South Asian, Indian, Jamaican vice president. Finally, thank God. Thank God. We finally get to see the day where we get a South Indian, Asian, Jamaican female vice presidential nominee. I said, research. Don't listen to the buzzwords. Then we played some George Carlin, and we laughed. Well, the laughing has stopped. The laughing has stopped, but the clowns are out. Immediately following the podcast, this was Monday, immediately following the podcast, I get a few photographs sent to me. And they are of Kamala Harris eating. I cannot believe I'm about to say this. It is Kamala Harris eating turnip greens, putting hot sauce on them. Texas Pete hot sauce. And the picture I was sent to me, the caption is, I can tell by the way she's putting the hot sauce on those greens, that's who I want to vote for. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that they let this rip. That they just said, all right, guys, let's do it. We know what's going on here. Kamala Harris is the vice presidential nominee. Get her in the hot sauce. Get her in the hot sauce picture. Now, you may be wondering, James, what's the big damn deal? What's the big deal with hot sauce? Why are you talking about this? There's nothing to talk about, right? Well, hold on a second. Let me get back in the Wayback Machine. Let me take you back in time. The only podcast on earth that can go back in time. Let's go back to 2016.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I
yes.
just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people again.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
Is it working?
Can you honestly believe this? Can you honestly believe that they are rolling out this exact same thing? It's way too specific. It's way too specific to just be like, oops, LOL, totally coincidental. They're taking Kamala Harris, and they've reduced Kamala Harris to a meme. They've reduced Kamala Harris, the vice presidential nominee. They reduced her to a straight-up trope and said, well, you got to do this. Go put hot sauce on your greens. This is so demeaning. This is so embarrassing. This is one of those things where it's almost like I'm cringing to death thinking about it. Like, who's making these calls? Who is sitting there like, all right, guys, look, we tried this with Hillary, okay? We tried the whole hot sauce thing. Beyonce was doing her thing. You know, like, this didn't work, man. This didn't work. All right, we got Kamala Harris. We are 3 days into her after being named vice presidential nominee. What do we want to do? Go make her put hot sauce on greens and make sure someone is there to photograph it. I mean, it's just so bad. And I guess I'm going to have to be the champion for this. I really don't know. I have a hard time. Obviously we don't script the show, so I have no idea how this is going to go. And I'm in a weird spot because, as a white guy, it's like I shouldn't have to be the champion for this. I shouldn't have to be the one who's doing this and saying this. And honestly, I don't even feel like I'm worthy of saying this. But I can't not point this out. But look, to the DNC and to whoever's making these decisions, it means a whole hell of a lot more to be African American than putting hot sauce on greens or just having hot sauce. I use hot sauce. I ate dinner tonight. I just used hot sauce. Frank's hot buffalo hot sauce, which is a whole lot hotter than Texas Pete. I can promise you that. I use hot sauce all the damn time. Like 21 Savage says.
I like hot sauce on my chicken. Oh, God.
And I do like hot sauce on my chicken. I like hot sauce on a lot of stuff. That doesn't make me any more African American than anybody else. It's hot sauce. It's not. That's not their calling. Like, it's not their calling card. It's not like, all right, look. We have got to reach the African American voter. What can we do? Let's talk about some kind of police reform, maybe some training reform. Let's talk about prison reform. Let's talk about some topics that keep getting brought up. No, that all sounds dumb as shit. How about we just order a side of greens and throw hot sauce on it? Okay, look, that's incredibly stereotypical. It's incredibly degrading. Can we not do that? Can we talk about like the actual policy? No, we're not. Get the greens. I eat fried okra all the time. Like I eat stuff that they literally have on this plate, and I'm pointing at the picture because it's on my screen. I eat this stuff all the time. I don't understand this. It just goes to show you. It goes to show you how little they actually care about their voters. How little they actually care about all this. I mean, this is a clown fiesta if I've ever seen one. Just in the middle of a restaurant, you know they drove over there, you know they had this planned, you know exactly they knew what to order, exactly what they were going to do with the photo, and they probably dumped hot sauce all over those greens, and they probably threw it in the trash. That's probably exactly what happened. I mean, it's just, I know a lot of African Americans, and friends with a lot of them, and know them very well. And there's a whole lot more to them than how they season their greens. I mean, it's just like there's so much more to a human being than that. I couldn't imagine if a presidential candidate like Donald Trump, I'm trying to think of what even a stereotypical white food is, but I'm just imagining if Donald Trump was out there and he was like, vote, like a photo op with him eating like regular Cheerios or something. It's like, I don't care. I don't care what Kamala Harris is putting on her greens. I don't care what my own friends put on their food. I'm not friends with my friends because of how they eat their food or what they eat. Like, how is this even a thing? And the saddest part is some people are literally getting tricked. Just like I told you, the picture I was sent, the person was saying, I'm voting for Kamala Harris because how she's putting the hot sauce on those greens. Think about that. This is the president of the she's, nominated for the vice president of the United States. This is a presidential election. And these are the tactics. We are in 2020. Elon Musk is talking about adding a neuro net to your brain to make you download languages. And like, we're in the same place where we're talking about sending people to Mars. And then the political tactics are to have people eating stereotypical foods for photo opportunities. Again, it's not, and the worst part is like, this isn't the first time. This is the second time in a row. They're just rolling out the exact same playbook. It's just, there's no effort. There's no thought process. Just new candidate, more hot sauce, whatever. Hot sauce is about to be on a second term. I mean, if hot sauce gets elected, we may never get hot sauce out of office. Is this just going to be a thing every 4 years? Every 4 years? That's how we should just nominate. That's how we should do it. That's how we should announce the next nominees, whether it's for the Republicans or for the Democrats. Just instead of just announcing it, just let's go to a live look at them eating, and then we can figure out who's running by what kind of condiments they're using. Like, people are watching, like, oh, he's using a lot of salt. Ooh, he's not using any seasoning at all. Maybe he's the Republican candidate. Maybe, ooh, that person over there is using hot sauce. Yep, that's the Democratic nominee right there. We can just start nominating people by sauces. Just start nominating people by their orders. Take everyone to like a McAllister's Deli, and whatever they order, whoever's order is the best, they get nominated. That's it. That's the new process. Forget policy, forget experience, forget any of that stuff. Just take them all to a bunch of different food places. Just write down their orders. Don't even put their names. Now we're taking another step. Don't even put their names. Just on the ticket, on the ballot, you're going to have like 4 candidates, no names. You're just going to have their orders. And then you vote for whoever's order is most like your order. If we do that, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be all right. Now, this Kamala Harris thing with the hot sauce, with the Hillary hot sauce, like, it's embarrassing enough, right? And we're holding back a little bit. We're holding back a little bit because somehow it actually gets worse. It just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it actually gets worse. So let's go ahead and take a look at how it gets worse. Let's move on to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, aka Joey B, as we know, he's been running his campaign from his basement or his. It's a room in his house. You know the room. It's the only place he's done anything from. He doesn't do any interviews with anyone. I take that back. He actually did an interview with Charlemagne the God, who is actually on The Breakfast Club, Power 105.1. You may have heard of them. They were the same place where Hilary Clinton went to do her hot sauce interview. I feel like I'm in a simulation. I may have a mental breakdown by the end of this podcast. So Joe Biden has done an interview with Charlemagne the God on Power 105. Let's take a quick snippet and see how that interview went.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
Oh, wow, that was that interview. So that's where he screwed that one up. So Joe Biden has already stuck his foot in his mouth once while trying to reach the young African-American voters by saying that, hey, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Unbelievable that Joe Biden, of all people, that Joe Biden believes that he has any say-so in how black someone is or isn't. So let's just shelf that to the side. Let's just push that on over here. We will get to that in a minute. And that's not the last Joe Biden soundbite we will have. So let's just slide that over here. So Joe Biden is decided to do a different interview. Another interview. The first interview since he nominated Kamala Harris. Imagine being Kamala Harris. And Joe Biden saying, don't worry, Kamala. I got you. I'm going to nominate you. You go get the Texas Pete. You go get the turnip greens. You know what to do. The camera will be there. I'm going to go do an interview. And I'm going to talk you up. This will be the first time that we're out there together on the ticket. And Kamala looks over and says, Joe, who are you doing the interview with? He says, Elle Magazine. And she says, okay. I trust Elle. Who's the interviewee? Who's the person doing it? I know a few people over there. They're kind of hard-hitting. Who you got, Joe? Who you got? And Joe looks her right in the eyes. And Joe kind of drifts off for a second because he forgets where he is. Then he drifts back into place. And then he says, Cardi B.
Who got this motherfucker started? God. Who took your bitch at the party? God. I took your bitch in the party. God. Who that be flags and Martian? God.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden has done one of his only interviews in his entire presidential campaign. And who does he do it with? He does it with the WAP singer herself, Cardi B. Let's listen to a little bit of their interview.
You know the nickname she gave her father when she was growing up? She'd call me Joey B. So we may be related or something.
Yep, Cardi B and Joey B.
You know what? If I kill somebody, I gotta go to jail. You gotta go to jail too. That's all I want.
So, now that this piece is in place, as you remember from 2016, where Hilary Clinton, the rapper that they threw in there with her was Beyonce, and now we have the full trifecta. We have the hot sauce. We have the Power 105 Breakfast Club. And now we have the female rapper, singer, whatever. Instead of Beyonce, we have Cardi B. This is a carbon copy. Now, this comes at an interesting time. Because Joe Biden and whoever decide to do this interview with Cardi B. This was released on August 17th. Now, it's worth a note that the like to dislike ratio is 4.5 thousand likes to 16,000 dislikes. And the interview is 16 minutes long and is absolutely terrible. It is absolutely dreadful as dreadful can be. And that's not surprising. And we'll get to the interview. But let's go back to Cardi B. So this was on August 17th. 2 days before this interview, 2 days before interviewing the nominee for President of the United States of America, Joey B. 2 days before this, Cardi B posted an Instagram video. And Cardi B posted an Instagram video that was a PSA. It was a PSA for all the females out there. It got 17 million views on her Instagram. Now, I'm going to play it in its entirety. Now, I am going to bleep out a bunch of the words because it is as graphic gets. If you thought WAP was bad, this is way worse. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Cardi B was putting on her Instagram 2 days before interviewing the presidential nominee.
Video so y'all can keep y'all pussy on WAP. You know what I'm saying? A lot of you bitches got the that dry ass pussy because y'all pH balance is off. And you wanna know why? It's not because you born with it. It's because y'all keep fucking these dirty ass and y'all bitches is shy to tell these that they is hot. You gotta tell babe, yo, your smell like mustard, my nigga. You gonna throw my pH balance off. Y'all bitches be fucking these little dirty ass y'all be sucking they and shit, and y'all be gagging on it. Y'all think y'all gagging on it because the is big, but no, bitch, it's because it stink. Another thing is, right, why your pH balance is throwing off, because y'all bitches need to fucking brush y'all teeth before you suck. Y'all eating barbecue ribs the whole day, bacon, egg, and cheese. Then you suck your and right after, he directly put it inside your pussy. Now you got bacon, egg, and cheese grease inside your pussy. You know what I'm saying? I'm only giving y'all this advice because I love you. If you don't want to take advice, alright then, bitch. Roll the dice and keep walking around with that dehydrated pussy. Like I said, I love y'all, and this is for y'all to keep the WAP.
A week before that delicious little PSA, Cardi B put out WAP with Meg Thee Stallion. So let's think about this. Cardi B puts out WAP. A week later, hits us on Instagram with the PSA that you heard, and then interviews the presidential nominee, Joe Biden. And now, I want to play a little snippet of another Joe Biden interview. Because obviously, Joe Biden is doing everything he can to get the young African-American vote. So let's take another snippet from Joe Biden on what he thinks about the African-American voting group.
Yes, and by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Guys, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Honestly, when I look at all this stuff, just like with the Casey Anthony stuff I was telling you earlier, when I look at all the evidence, I look at all of it together, it's impossible for me to be like, okay, well, this makes sense. I mean, we have all of this in front of us. The hot sauce, the Breakfast Club, Cardi B interviewing Joe Biden. We have Joe Biden with what he's saying to Charlemagne about you're not black if you vote for Trump. You've got Joe Biden saying that the African-American voters aren't diverse. You've got Cardi B giving you a PSA on how to keep your WAP, I guess, wappy. I don't know. And this is all a week apart. This isn't like, oh, well, that's 2 years ago. This is 2 years ago. This is this. This is a week apart. This is their master plan. I mean, think about Kamala Harris. What has Kamala Harris done since being named the vice president nominee? She has been forced to go take a turnip green hot sauce Texas Pete photo op while the presidential nominee is doing an interview with Cardi B, who is busy promoting her song WAP. This all is like a Bermuda Triangle or something. Like all these coordinates bouncing off of each other is just too damn much for me. It's absolutely too much. On top of that, I got Bill Clinton and John Kasich talking at the damn DNC. I mean, and it's crazy. It really is kind of crazy because Joe Biden and everyone's been saying Trump is not a presidential candidate. He's too much of a showman. He was on reality TV. He's not serious. He's not a serious candidate. Joe Biden is a serious candidate. Kamala Harris is a serious candidate. And what do they immediately stoop to do? Hot sauce pictures and Cardi B interviews. Now, before we continue on Joe Biden, Cardi B is receiving a lot of flack for this. And I do want to say that I think even though Cardi B, makes the Instagram post and she's, has WAP, and even though she is admitted to drugging men to rob them, I don't think that, and that she was a stripper, like I don't think that all of that means she can't have a political opinion. I don't think any of that means like, oh, well, Cardi B can't possibly be in tune with social issues or political issues. She has to just stay in her lane. I don't believe that. I don't blame Cardi B for taking the interview. I mean, if you get a chance to interview the vice president, sure, whatever. I mean, Cardi B did, she's not a journalist. Cardi B did about as good of a job as she could have asked for. But it's more of an indictment on just the political process and what the political process has become. It is not two guys or two girls or whatever debating policy and debating their structure and their plan and what they're going to do for the nation. It's just pandering to voters. And it honestly goes further back. It goes further back than this. I mean, if we go back to P. Diddy and the vote or die and all that stuff, and it's just more of the same. It's just morphed into this weird where who can pander the best, who can do the best, and who can cheat out the most votes. And it's just so sad. It really is sad. And these are obviously very targeted maneuvers. And so I'm really going to talk about these specific situations. But to me, what it does to me, if I was an African American, is I would really understand where I fit in this whole thing in their eyes. Because obviously they don't care about actual issues, because the last thing they're doing in the most important time, I mean, it is August 19th. We are a few months away from this election. We're just a few months away from electing the next 4 years of the President of the United States. And what are they doing? Lining up Cardi B interviews, lining up hot sauce photo ops. Like, this is Kamala Harris's debut. This is her. This is it. This is her big debut. And her first week has been nothing but a clown fiesta by whoever's pulling the strings. And I have no clue who's doing this. But it just goes to show you. I mean, it just goes to show you how little they really care about their voters when they believe that the way to the voters is with hot sauce and Cardi B. I mean, that's what I think bothers me the most about this. And again, like I said earlier, I do feel weird about talking about this because it's not me they're pandering to, but I can see through this, and I can just see how degrading it is. I mean, there's gotta be more. There's got to be more to these communities. There's got to be more to these voters than hot sauce and Cardi B. I mean, I just don't understand. And then right now of all times is where we should be talking about, social injustice and the racial divide in our country. And again, reforming police training, kind of changing the allocation of money in some of these police departments, like all that stuff. This is the prime time. There's riots in the streets. There are protests. I mean, stuff has really gone on in the past couple of months that really should be at the forefront of this, that really should be being talked about. All of this. I mean, closing the economic gaps. There's a lot of stuff that can be being talked about. A lot of stuff. But instead, it's this. And if right now it's just going to be pandering and hot sauce and Cardi B and Joey B and whatever, if that's happening right now with this political and social climate that we have going on, it just goes to show you that they don't give a damn what's happening. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and instead of talking about healthcare policy, instead of talking about relief efforts, instead of talking about what we're doing with COVID, instead of any of that stuff, we see this. Again, we have social unrest, civil unrest. Seattle has been a war zone. I mean, whole city, Minnesota defunded their police. We've got real racial issues right now, social issues right now that we need a leader. We need someone to talk about. We need this kind of stuff to be aired out, and that's what needs to be debated. Not what you put on your greens, not what you order, not if you extra spicy or extra crispy. You know, like, I don't need to hear that. And that cannot be the playbook right now. I mean, could you imagine if we're like, you know, what 9/11 or something happens, and instead of talking about what we're going to do about that, if, you know, George Bush is blaring Kenny Chesney and throwing a football through a tire swing, it's like, hey man, what the hell is this? You're not running for, you know, you're not running for class favorite. You're running for president of the United States. I mean, if it wasn't any more clear to you just how ridiculous this whole thing is, these past couple of days damn sure should have shown it. And what I think should happen is the voters should come out, and obviously they kind of are with all these dislikes and likes on these videos, but the voters have to come out and say, look, man, what the hell is this? We're not going to do this. We are not going to do this. We are not going to put up with this. We are not doing this shit again. We are not doing this again. We're not sitting back and letting this happen again. It's just like last week when I talked about how they wanted a strong, and they being the voter base wanted a strong female representative to run for president. And what do they give everyone? The most anti-woman possible. It's like, damn it, damn it, damn it. Damn it. You're not listening. You don't care. You're just, you know, putting a wig on this and throwing it out there and hoping we buy it. And it happens again and again and again. And at some point, I understand. I really understand people who are like, look, I'm voting anti-Trump regardless. I totally get that. But someone is going to have to stand up and say, enough's enough. Enough with the hot sauce. Enough with the Texas Pete. Enough with the Cardi B's and the Beyoncés and the Breakfast Club and the Kanyes and the P. Diddy's. Tell me some real stuff. Tell me how you're actually going to make this a better country. Tell me what you're actually going to do to fix this stuff. And I don't know if they can. And it's just, you know, actually good for Cardi B for like whatever, even trying to ask some questions. Again, it's Cardi B. So you can't expect her to be fully figured out with international policy. But Cardi B's asking for free Medicare, and she's asking for, you know, some police equality, and she's asking for like free education. She's asking for a lot. She sounds like a little kid talking to Santa, honestly. And what's Joe Biden do? Joe Biden just breezes through, and he's like, there's no reason we can't have all that. What? Did Joe Biden just say, hey, we're having free education, we're having free healthcare, we're having what are you saying, Joe? Are you even attempting to answer the questions, or is this just a let me get through this 16 minutes so I can have my face next to Cardi B and hopefully this is enough? There has to be something more substantial. There really does. And all of this happening, it's just embarrassing. It really is. And again, I certainly do not want to be, or I certainly am not qualified to be the champion for this topic. But it's just something that's so obvious and so apparent that I have to say something about it. And, you know, I hope that people are seeing through this as easily as we are. Because, again, it's painfully obvious of what's going on. And, you know, to put a bow on this, I think that, you know, Joe Biden and his team, Kamala Harris, whoever, is at the point now to where they've almost become parodies of themselves. I mean, this is a Saturday Night Live skit. This is a Saturday Night Live skit where they're having Kamala using the hot sauce, and they're having Cardi B being a political correspondent. It's just nuts to think about Cardi B being like, let's see, what's on the schedule this week? Okay, let's see, on Tuesday, I'm going to put out that PSA about the bacon and egg sandwiches. And then on Thursday, I have to sit down and I have to interview Joe Biden. And then on Friday, I get to go and do some more WAP stuff. I mean, her schedule is insane. Her schedule is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's crazy, man. I mean, it's hard for me. When I think about how the world was, or how my world was the last election, and how tuned in everyone was, and how almost for a full year it was debates, and it was, you know, we whittled everything down in the primaries. And I remember voting for Ted Cruz, and then I remember, you know, just all the the nominees is fading away, and then Trump gets the nod, and then Trump and Hillary and those debates. And I remember the whole process, and now it's just been replaced with this. And there's no debates. Everyone's in their house. All I've seen is Joe Biden. I don't even know if he's he could just be an animatronic at this point. I don't even know. All we see is Joe Biden from his basement, and he's doing interviews with Cardi B, and him and Trump haven't talked at all. There's no debate there. Kamala Harris the vice president gets nominated 2.5 months before the election. She's eating greens. It's hard for me to even really care. It's like, hey, vote somebody in, elect somebody, wake me up the next day and let me know who the president is. I don't care. I don't care anymore. Bill Clinton's talking to the DNC. I don't know. I mean, what do you go ahead. Do whatever you want to do. Do what you want to do. I'll see you in 4 years. I'll see you whenever you're sprinkling some crystals on your raw oysters or whatever the hell we're doing now. Whatever the next move is, whoever the rapper is, Billie Eilish or somebody will be doing an interview. Billie Eilish will be interviewing The Rock, and The Rock's vice president, Seth MacFarlane, will be eating a chili cheese dog and a funnel cake. I don't know. I don't know what the next step is. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I've had a lot of people reach out and ask about this, and I told them, hey, we'll talk about it Thursday on the podcast. And it's just kind of crazy. And reading the comments is the best part. I'm hearing people who are upset about Cardi B's video. It's like, guys, what the hell? What are we doing? I've heard people saying they're like, oh, well, Cardi B's objectifying women and women think it's empowering women. It's like, dude, you got to take 50,000 steps back. That's like watching a Chief Keef video where he's got 250 guns and he's shooting the walls in his mansion, and people are like, man, we really need to regulate guns. Dude, what? You're 1,000 yards away from regulating guns. You can't listen to WAP or listen to Cardi B's PSA and be like, oh, man, she's kind of objectifying women. Oh, really? Did you think so? Did you think she was objectifying women? She's wearing a cheetah onesie with her nipples cut out. We are way beyond objectifying women, brother. We are way past that. We aren't even in the world of objectifying women. Objectifying women is 50 steps closer than whatever WAP was and whatever the PSA was. And somehow that leads to interviewing the president of the United States or a presidential nominee. It's become comical. It's become really a joke. It's become too much. The simulation has hit a snag. I don't know if we're even in a simulation anymore or if the aliens or whoever got tired of pulling the strings and we've just got this now. We've just got this. It's just kind of a LOL. It's just like, what's the craziest thing we can possibly do? What could be even crazier? And then it just happens. So we'll see where it goes from here. But it's a scary world. And we've gone now about 40 minutes on this. We are going to wrap the podcast up. The podcast is going to be centered around the Cardi B, Joe Biden hot sauce fiasco. Unbelievable. Again, guys, the podcast is presented to you, like always, from Mackhard Anderson & Associates, PLLC. Unbelievable service. Look, guys, car wrecks, 18-wheeler collisions, wrongful death, bad faith insurance claims, fire loss, termite damage, offshore injuries, employment discrimination, contract business disputes. I don't see anywhere on here of them eating turnip greens with hot sauce, which means I may need to cancel them as a sponsor unless they start doing interviews with the Breakfast Club. The Hattiesburg-based team, they will litigate for you, negotiate for you, represent for you. Anything you need, they got it. Make sure to let them know that the James Skrmetta Show podcast sent you their way. Got my pronouns mixed up there. Do not fall prey to out-of-town billboard attorneys. We've said this a million times. The scummy, scuzzy billboard attorneys who look like they're made out of clay don't give a shit about you if they're saying you got 15 minutes to figure out the security for your family's future. You got one click to get your legs back after getting T-boned by a drunk driver. Not happening, boss. Put some hot sauce on your life and call the good folk at Mackhard, Anderson & Associates, PLLC. The number, do you know it by now? You should. 601-450-1715. The website, mackhardlaw.com, MCHARDLAW.com. I was talking to a friend the other day. He called me and he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Dude, I'm just hanging out. What are you up to?" He said, "I'm parked in the middle of a four-way stop begging for an 18-wheeler to run me over," because he said, "I just want some of that service from Mackhard, Anderson & Associates, PLLC." And I was like, "Do you please get out of the road? Please get out of the road. We'll figure something else out." But that's how bad people want their service, okay? Now, I do not recommend you doing that, but if you are in a situation where you're dealing with any of the awful things that I explained earlier, fire loss, termite damage, any of that stuff, please call the good folk at Mackhard, Anderson & Associates, PLLC. What a crazy time, guys. What a crazy time between Joe Biden and all this stuff. And you know, it's just wild. I'm going to leave you tonight with another funny. This is something else that that's interesting with kind of how everything is, that, you know, they've kind of fed you this Kamala Harris, Joe Biden situation. And it's hard to remember because it's been so long now and so much has happened. But Biden and Kamala Harris were enemies. They were both running for president of the United States. Now, I'm sure most of you don't remember that because, you know, the media won't tell you. But back whenever no one cared about Kamala Harris, when she was getting less than 5% of the vote, right before she dropped out, when no one was saying that we needed an Indian, Asian, Jamaican president, when no one was saying, man, look at Kamala Harris putting them hot sauce on her greens, when no one was saying that stuff, when she was an afterthought, when people were voting for Elizabeth Warren and when they were voting for Bernie Sanders over her, when, you know, back then, her and Biden went at it. And we're going to have a fun little clip here where Biden forgets Kamala Harris is even on stage. And then just a few months later, he decides, you know what? For whatever reason, I'm thinking Kamala Harris might be the perfect running mate. So we will play you out with some Joe Biden, Kamala Harris sparring words in the last debates. And remember, these two are now on the same ticket. One uses hot sauce, and one goes by Joey B. Thank you for listening to the James Skrmetta Show podcast. I will see you Monday.
But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true, number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Now, number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, Everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
I have supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vice President.
Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus, the only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate, a whole range of people.
No,
my point is,
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first African-American elected. First African-American. So my point is that one of the reasons I was picked to be vice president was because of my relationship, long-standing relationship with the black community. I was part of that coalition.